the laws of the universe are there. The law of the harvest, the law of attraction, karma, whatever you want to call it, the law of polarity, all those laws will bring it back in good time. But you've got to send it out. You can't just sit in on a chair and wait and pine, hoping that love's going to come your way. You've got to send it out.
Welcome to Changing the Channel with Joe Garner, a show about shifting our individual and collective beliefs on what is possible for the future of humanity. As our understanding of how our reality continues to shift, we are at a point of reunification between science and spirituality. What does the world look like when we break free from the generational trauma that has kept most humans playing small for thousands of years and step into our full power as the co-creators of this reality? I always ask that you keep an open mind with this podcast. Ask yourself what resonates with my truth at this time and what does not. Respect your intuition, but see if you can get through the whole show because there might be that little nugget buried deep in the conversation that unlocks something for you. Welcome back to Changing the Channel. I have a wonderful guest today. His name is Paul Zolman. He is the international best-selling author of Role of Love, which is a book on love languages and how they play a role in your everyday life. So welcome to the show, Paul. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Joe. My pleasure to be with you today.
So what is the role of love, the love languages? Kind of get us into what you've been working on the last 2 decades of your life and how that plays a role in this shifting of consciousness on the planet.
Great question, Joe. And for the last couple of decades of my life, I realized that I had residual anger left over from my childhood that I wanted to get rid of. Actually, as I examined it even a little bit farther, it looked like it was a generational thing that was passed down from my parents, possibly passed down from grandparents. Yeah, it was just something that was passed down. And there was a time 15 years ago that I was dating someone that I was serious with. Became single after this anger was contributory to the demise in that first marriage. I was single, dating someone, and became serious. It was time for Big Brother approval. Joe, I'm number 10 of 11 children. So actually, in regards to the title of your podcast, I was a human remote control. I was the one that all the other siblings told to go up to the TV and you change the channel. I had to turn the knob and change the channel. And it was just kind of interesting that you've got that as the name of your podcast.
Are you feeling a little bit stuck? Like you've been doing the work, but you're just not sure what the next steps are? Right now, I'm offering coaching through meditation and intuition to tap into your soul to get the hints about where your life is heading towards. What are the next steps for you? So if you're interested, check out the show notes and set up a time to just check. I've got a free 30-minute discovery call that you can sign up for. I look forward to hearing from you, and please feel free to reach out.
But it was time to take this woman to my brother's house for that Big Brother approval. So we went 300 miles north to his house. First thing that happened when I went in his house is my sister-in-law pulls her aside and said, the only emotion that the Zolman family learned growing up was anger. At first I denied it. I said, then it made me mad. And I thought, there I did. I verified exactly what she said. And I realized, Joe, at that time that I was on the angry side of the spectrum. If love was on one side of the spectrum, and or if anger was on one side of the spectrum, love was on the other side of the spectrum, that I was more on the angry side of the spectrum. And I wanted to move away from that culture. I really wanted to, and I thought I had been moving away from the culture, but obviously not enough. So the angry culture that I learned was people talking over one another, interrupting at all times, thinking that what they have to say is a whole lot more important than anything you're saying. All that is part of the angry culture. Well, there was abuse, the verbal abuse, the physical abuse, sexual abuse. All those things were part of that angry culture from growing up. I needed to get rid of all that and distance myself from that. So what I did was I tried to learn the languages of love. Started reading the Languages of Love by Dr. Gary Chapman. He wrote it in 1992, or published it in 1992. I read it 4 or 5 times, but from where I came from, Joe, I couldn't get it. I couldn't get the application of the love languages. Dr. Chapman, you mean that if I guess what Joe's love language is and I cater to that, we're going to be buddies? I'm a bad guesser. And it wasn't happening so far in my life, Joe. And I didn't see it happening very soon in my life either. So that wasn't working for me. And the second idea that Dr. Chapman has in his book said, well, if I take this survey, I can find out what my love language is. Well, Joe, what am I supposed to do with that? Advertise?
Mm.
Put a button on my shirt that says, hello, I'm Gifts. Joe, what do you have for me today? It's really awkward. And I'm getting upset and angry in public situations was awkward enough. I was done with awkward. I didn't want to be doing that. So what I realized was that I liked the principles of the love languages, but I just had a hard time with the application. And I thought back to my childhood and I remembered that games is, even as dysfunctional as our family was, that games brought us together. It felt more cohesive as a family at that time, felt love at that time. There was still a smack talk, there was still the put downs, there was still the aggressive competition, all of that in that angry culture, but it was something that pulled us together. So I thought, what if I can make this a game? So I contacted Dr. Chapman, sent him an email, and asked him, are you licensing those little icons, the pictures I have for each one of the love languages? And his attorney wrote back and said, no, we're not doing that at this time. So I contacted my attorney locally and asked him about this idea. He said that theory, like the love language theory, is not copyrightable. Application is. They weren't doing it as a game. So from that, I realized I could make my own icons and make it into a game. So that's what I did. So right in my hand, I'm holding a cube that is about 1 inch by 1 inch cubed. And on that cube is a hand holding an hourglass. That would represent time as a love language. Now I'm holding one that is holding a platter. That would represent service. Two hands put together to create a heart, and then a little conversation fly out from that heart. Those would be the words from the heart. Two hands touching one another. That would be touch. And then the last love language would be a hand holding a gift. That would be gifts. 5 love languages, 6 sides on the die. The last side I named myself. I named it Surprise Me. So Joe, there's just 2 instructions. You roll the cube every day. Whatever it lands on is the love language you send out or give away all day that day to everybody. Everybody. So I was single when I created this, and on Dr. Chapman suggested that you do this to your significant other. I didn't have one. So what am I going to do? I just decided, well, I'll just have to love everybody. And for me, Joe, this was really kind of the special sauce for me. I needed that replacement behavior so to stop getting angry, stop getting annoyed until I had that flash of anger. Stop doing that. Instead, I needed to be kind, be kind, be kind, be kind with these love languages and get to those higher laws of love, like compassion or charity or intimacy or forgiveness or empathy or sympathy. All those are mercy. All those are higher laws of love. These love languages really are the basic. Everybody should know them.
So this game helps people understand what those are and then live through them and have experiences as a gift giver or somebody with touch or any of the other ones that are a part of the game. Is that right?
That's exactly right. So if you worked the cube for 30 days, you're with the whole idea is that you be giving away all 5 love languages so that you know them backwards and forwards. You become what I like to call a love language linguist. sexy title. I know you want it. You want to put it on your resume. And as well as your listeners would want that. When you go to that employer and the employer says, "What the heck is a love language linguist?" You're going to say, "I just love people." They want their customers loved and they want a loving environment within that workplace. And your resume should rise to the top because of that. The second thing it does for you, Joe, is that it gives you that peripheral vision that most people don't have right now. Most people can only see their own love language, what they like to receive.
Mm.
They can't see anything else as love. So this gives you that peripheral vision that, oh, they're loving on me. It's not my primary love language, but I can respond because I see that they're trying to send love my way.
Yeah, that's very important for people to see those blind spots, see where they aren't picking up on people's cues and information and the interactions that they're having with people. So I think that's a really cool and unique idea to really hammer in, to anchor in these ideas of love languages and how they interact with people on the day to day basis. So where did this idea come from?
That's a good question. I just as I'm working, trying to understand the love languages and trying to it just occurred to me that you know this would be great as a game, and so just start kind of evolve from there. I first did a prototype, Joe, and the prototype was really clunky. It's a 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch piece of block of wood that I put laser engraved some icons on there so that I would know what I wrote, but it was really, really kind of hokey that it almost acted like a weighted die in Las Vegas. That whatever was up and you rolled it, it would close 2 or 3 times, and then it rolled to whatever you wanted it. So you could almost decide what you wanted to do that and then roll this clunky die. What I decided, I had to shave out the corners, round as the corners to make it so it roll a little bit better. And then after that, I started using this prototype until I had all the artwork done for the regular die. And then I had to find a manufacturer for the regular die. But this is what I started with. So it was really, really kind of evolved from idea to prototype that to the regular product.
Beautiful. Let's talk a little bit about your transition from anger to love. How did that go? How was that reshaping and rewiring your brain from anger to love? What was that experience like?
Great question, Joe. And what happened for me is I realized that I was being annoyed at what other people were doing. Rarely was I ever annoyed about myself, but it was always about what other people were doing. And I realized that that's out of my realm. That's not even a decision I can make. I'm upset about a decision they made. Why would I be upset? It's their life. It's their choice. And I realized that's none of my business. And when I realized that, I realized one more fault of that angry culture that I grew up in is that there were no boundaries. Now I had to have a boundary. I had to have that boundary that said, I really can't make decisions for that person. It's not my call. It's their call. And and by doing that and making that boundary, I realized that I don't have to say what's wrong with you and go down that critical path or be critical of another person because it's not my business. What they choose to do, if they ask for advice, obviously I can give advice. But if I want to give advice and they're not asking for it, I need to ask permission. And so that's the new boundary that I had to set for myself that really should be set for everybody. Something that will really help a lot of communication throughout the world is that knowing those boundaries are set. We can't decide for another person what they should do with their life. And that was very helpful. But I was thinking, what's wrong with that person? When I started rolling the cube, now the new mindset was, what's right with that person? And what can I love about that person? It occurred to me then, at that time, Joe, that people are mostly good. Even if they're 10% bad, 20% bad, or even 40% or 45% bad, they're still mostly good. I was focusing on they're that minority of a person that they had faults, they had weaknesses. Well, I have them too. And realizing that, why am I focusing on that? And I like the magnifying glass analogy. Now, why would I magnify or make that bigger for that person? Because it's coming right back to me. And they're going to look at my faults. And I don't need that. I already know that I have a lot of faults, but and many that I don't even want to admit, just because I'm working one at a time. If I was overwhelmed with all my faults in one day, I'd be very depressed, as would most people would be. But I decided focusing on the good of people and having that paradigm shift. It's 180 degrees, Joe. 180 degrees, focusing on what's right about people versus what's wrong with them. And you're pointing your face a whole different direction. And when you do that, when I did it, I was so busy focusing on what's right about that person, what there was to love about that person, that I forgot to be annoyed. I forgot to think about what's wrong with that person. And the transition was super fast because I was consciously trying to get over the anger. I had the replacement behavior now and consciously rolling the die. Notice there's on the cube, they're just pictures. Those pictures kind of burn into your mind as memory hooks. What did I roll today?
Hmm.
What am I focused on today? What's the theme of today? What kind of love am I sending out all day that day? And when that burns into your mind like that, it's top of the mind and it keeps you going all day long. If it was words or something like that, I mean, if I see the word elephant, Joe, you're not seeing ELEPHANT in your mind. You see the picture.
Mhm.
So it is with this. And I think that that's really been the impetus for me to be more loving and forget about being annoyed at things I have no control of.
Right, and that's a very
Yeah.
powerful message,
Yep.
the idea that when you start to shift what you focus on, what you're putting your attention on, where your energy is going, it starts to shift the reality that you're experiencing. So, you were experiencing a very angry reality when you were focused on people's negativity, the downside, the 10% of them that was, not loving and caring and empathetic. And when you shifted your view, when you shifted changed the channel basically on what you were viewing, how you were viewing your reality, it now shifted and became, you saw all the good in all these people. You saw so much power in everybody. You saw what their true potential was when you started to experience the good in them instead of seeing the negative or the bad in them. And it's very powerful to see that, to understand that, to really know that even just a simple game in the morning can change your entire mindset and how you're experiencing this reality. And that the message is just beautiful, and I really enjoy kind of hearing about that and how simple it is to make that transition. Again, you're saying 30 days, and that's kind of how the rewiring of your mind works.
Yep.
It typically takes 20 to 40 days to actually make new connections within your brain and rewire the brain so that you're viewing reality from a different perspective, and you're not, stuck in that loop of anger or in that loop of seeing the negative. You're actually stuck in now a more positive loop, a loop of love and a loop of seeing the positive in everybody else. And that is a huge, just a quick reminder for people, like each morning. Um, Maybe it's dice, maybe that's the game that you're playing. Maybe it's just writing a little bit of gratitude in the morning and saying, I'm grateful for being alive, for the house that I have, for everything that I have in my life, and looking at life in this positive perspective. And then that kind of shifts how you're viewing everything else in the world. The internal reality is creating that external reality that you're experiencing.
Makes a huge difference, Joe. And you spot on when you're saying that. There's a couple of things that you said too that it really takes only 2 seconds. so simple that you would think that it would do its thing to you. This is one of those investments, so that you put in very little. Take the 2 seconds to set the theme for the day, keep that theme, just put in the time to keep that theme and put in the effort to keep that theme all day long. And then by doing that, the in, the return on your investment is going to be so huge, so large that you might not have enough room to even receive all the blessings that you get from
Mm.
sending out love every single day.
So
So go ahead.
yeah, from your perspective, as people start to open up their heart and start to operate from a loving manner, what what does the world start to look like from your perspective? I mean, obviously you've got your firsthand experience of what the world's started to look like. Maybe go a little bit bigger. What do communities start to look like? Like, how does this change? How does operating from love on an everyday basis change how uh, all of society starts to kind of look?
So it's a great question, Joe. And as you're rolling the die, what I found that whatever genre of love that I'm practicing that day, I'm watching for people to light up. So you've got all these people that are practicing this in a community. They're watching for people to light up. They're watching for people to have a better day because of something you said, something you may have done to help them have a better day. No longer is love about you. It's not about you. It's about them. That when you make someone else's day, then you're getting that satisfaction that you helped them have a better day. You're lifting them up a little bit. And when you lift anybody up, when you help anybody out of depression, when you help anybody out of a bad mood, when you help anybody in that way, that's like a payday for you, but that's not why you're doing it. You're sending this love out without any expectation about coming back, but trusting, as you said in the beginning, Joe, trusting the universe to absolutely bring that back. The laws of the universe are there. Regardless of what you do, the laws of the universe are there. The law of the harvest, the law of attraction, karma, whatever you want to call it, the law of polarity, all those laws will bring it back in good time. But you've got to send it out. You can't just sit in on a chair and wait and pine, hoping that love's going to come your way. You've got to send it out.
Mm.
And when you do that, the society becomes a whole lot better. And you start send it's like your Johnny Appleseed when it comes to love. You're planting these seeds of love all throughout the world and hoping that those people will take it to heart to watch for the positive. The media teaches us differently. Media teaches to look for the bad things that people are doing, then report it. And bad news sells really well. Love doesn't sell that well. We got to turn the tide though. We've got to turn it and make it happen for all our neighbors and all our friends and the community, the state, the nation, and eventually the world. We've got to do this. And we've got to do it pretty quickly because there's a lot of rage out there right now, just
Mhm.
trying to turn the tide.
And it's happening. You can see it everywhere where love is starting to kind of overpower and become the main theme in different communities, different families, different areas of the world. And yeah, there are places where there's still war and there's still terror and there's still this anger that exists. But that doesn't mean that you just stop and give up. That means
Yeah.
go out and love a little bit more. Go out and spread your love just a little bit more. Help that neighbor that needs a little bit of help that day, or find that person on the street that could use a helping hand, maybe an extra dollar, maybe just a conversation. And that continues to build and build and build. And like you said, Johnny Appleseed went out and planted, 100,000 seeds, and it became this massive shift in how the ecological aspect of the US really existed. And it's amazing to see just, you sending out a little bit of love and how that love vibrates and resonates through the rest of the community, through the rest of the country, then eventually, like you said, through the rest of the world.
There's a phrase that you don't hear. I never hear it, but it's called "turn out the dark." And the opposite would be to turn on the light. And this is really kind of what you're doing all day long, Joe, is you're turning on lights. You're finding who likes that love language best of all. When you find somebody that you've lit up, you just make a mental note of they like that particular love language. You're not trying to put them into a box. You're not trying to say that's the only thing that they like, but they lit up. So you're making a mental note that that's what they like. It's not, if you put someone in a box, like the survey kind of puts people in a box, the Dr. Chapman survey says, well, your primary love language is physical touch. You may not get anything else other than physical touch. That would be like having tacos every night for the rest of your life. Somebody at some point in time is going to get sick of tacos. You don't have to do that anymore. This is the rolling of the cube actually provides that variety and that spice of life. It changes it up. People change, and I believe that love languages change. Growing up in that family of physical abuse, I liked physical touch because that was what I thought was love. It's rotated a little bit. Now it's more the words, and physical touch is still high priority, but definitely not in the format that I received it as a child.
Beautiful. Yeah, and it's amazing to just understand that somebody can come from physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, and then, dedicate their life to spreading love now. So your story is fascinating. I truly enjoyed getting to understand what it is. I love what you're putting out into the world and helping. Again, a simple, how long does it take to roll the dice? 20 seconds in the morning? Burn that into
Dude,
your memory. 2
do
seconds,
something.
exactly. Just roll that dice and live your day from love at that point, and it's a beautiful thing. So, if somebody's looking to buy the book, get the dice, join your community, what's the best place to check out all of this stuff?
The best place, Joe. Thank you for that, and for all the compliments too. This really is refreshing to be able to have conversations with people that really believe in the same thing. We really need a whole lot more love, and to be able to just use your own powerhouse of your channel to send it out. I appreciate that so much. You can find this at rolloflove.com. I did a play on words. You roll the cube outside of you, but the change that happens within you is ROLE. So it's ROLE of love.com.
Beautiful. I'll make sure I link that in the show notes so that everybody can check that out if you're interested in operating from love on a daily basis. I highly recommend checking out Roll of Love and getting that die and rolling it every morning and seeing what happens in your life, what starts to show up, where the love starts to come back. Again, law of reciprocity, what you put out into the world comes back to you multiplied. So,
Yeah.
thank you again, Paul, for coming on today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Joe. It's been a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you again for listening to Changing the Channel with Joe Garner. If you enjoyed the show, please follow the podcast, hit the bell to know when a new show comes out, share with a friend, and rate us on whatever platform you're tuning in from. It helps get these messages out to more people to create the collective shift in reality we are here to experience. Make sure you interact with the Q&A and poll sections of the show so I can continue to provide content you enjoy. Finally, check out my website in the show notes to become a VIP of Changing the Channel and join the shift that is happening.